परब्रह्म समारम्भाम् श्री दत्तात्रेय मध्यमाम् श्री दत्त स्वामी पर्यन्ताम् वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। सर्वविश्वन्यस्तपादपद्मायते वामहस्तालोलवेदशास्त्रायते ज्ञानसूर्यायते दत्तरूपायते श्रीवेणुगोपालकृष्णाय वन्दनम् श्रीवेणुगोपालकृष्णाय वन्दनम् श्रीवेणुगोपालकृष्णाय वन्दनम्। गुरुदत्त श्रीदत्त प्रभुदत्त पाहि माम् विधिदत्त हरिदत्त हरदत्त रक्ष माम् पाहि मां दत्ता रक्ष मां दत्ता। Trailokya Gita, Chapter 6, Trimata Samanvaya Yogaha, Association of the correlation among three divine philosophies. Trailokya uvacha gurutrayasya siddhantah ke datta jagadguro tesham samanvayah kascha bruhitvam gururajamam. Miss Trailokya asked, O Datta, O world preacher, O king of divine preachers, what are the theories of the three divine preachers called Shankara, Ramanuja, and Madhva? How did you correlate them? Please explain to me.
Shri Datta Swami uvacha Uktam Tattvam Guroh Kali Shankarasya hi Nastikaah Sagurustadhitardhaya Vedasat Pandito Nayat. Shri Datta Swami spoke, I have already told you that the divine incarnation always behaves like preacher or guru and not a scholar telling mere truth. When Shankara came, this country was fully filled with atheists like Purvamimamsakas and Buddhists. Shankara behaved as guru so that these atheists are to be brought into correct path, and he did not behave as mere scholar of the Vedas to preach the truth told in the Vedas. Nangi kuryan nastikastam sabrahmana paragatihi jivo brahmeti sapraha nastikasya sachasti tat. An atheist is always rigid in not accepting the existence of somebody else as God. There is no other way than to say that the atheist himself is God. Shankara told that every soul is God because everybody was an atheist only. By this, Shankara made the atheists to say that God exists. Tvam tat tvamasi tachasti त्रिवाक्यैरास्तिको भवत् सृष्ट्यादि शक्ति रज्ञाना विक्षेपात् न ततोर्चनम्. Shankara told three statements. First, you are God. Second, you exist. Third, hence God exists. By these three statements, the atheist told that God exists because He is God. He exists and hence God must exist. The atheist asked Shankara about the reason for the absence of unimaginable powers with him, since he is already God. Shankara replied that the practical influence of long-standing ignorance is obstructing the soul to become God, and hence the soul shall worship God to get a purity of mind by which the influence of practical ignorance can disappear, after which only the soul can become God practically. नास्तिक आस्तिक भक्तान्तः ततो रामानुजो अवदत् भक्तिर्मुख्या सतस्यांशः देहवस्त्रांशतो हरेः. Shankara not only turned atheist into theist, but also turned theist into devotee. Then Shankara left at this stage. Afterwards, Ramanuja appeared preaching the philosophy that is required at that stage. Ramanuja told that devotion is very important and the soul is not total God but a tiny part of God. In telling this point, Ramanuja took God as mediated God, so that the soul is a tiny part of the world and the world is taken as the external body present around the divine body of God Vishnu, like a coat surrounding shirt. The soul is a thread in the coat and not a thread in the shirt. The shirt is the divine body of God Vishnu. But this concept was confused and people used to take the soul as a part of the soul or divine body of God Vishnu. In order to cancel this confusion, Madhva refused to treat this world as the outermost external body of God Vishnu. आत्मा विष्णोश्च जीवो हि विलीनात् पुरतः परम् नो ह्यो भिन्नो न भिन्नौ तौ शिष्या भिन्ना मताविदः. Shankara took the soul as God, which is relative awareness present in God Vishnu before the merge of God Datta with him. By this, the same relative awareness or soul of any human being can be considered as God tentatively. But the soul of Vishnu became God only when God Datta, containing the unimaginable God, merged with it. Such soul of Vishnu is unimaginable awareness, which is totally different from the relative awareness or soul of human being. By this analysis, Shankara and Ramanuja are one only in their theories, but the followers of both did not understand their philosophies in depth and ended with quarrels. रुचेर भक्तेः फलांशाच्च तृष्णांशाच्चापि भक्तिगाः मध्वाद्भेदसेवकत्वे प्रधानहनुमत्परः. The devotees in the time of Ramanuja proceeded with devotion, expecting at least the partial status of God, because a long time passed since they became devotees and tasted the sweetness of devotion of God. The ambition, exploiting the weakness of human mind, was fully used by Shankara, and now Ramanuja did not destroy the total hope but maintained it as little hope. Then Madhva appeared, maintaining the major philosophy of Ramanuja, but told that the soul is totally separate entity, neither God nor part of God, to become servant of God. He stressed on service, keeping Hanuman as the main focus. Jnana Bhakti Karma Yoga Tribhih Prokta Kramadiha Shushka Hanta Cha Kalena Jivonte Sevako Nataha. Shankara came first and told that the theoretical spiritual knowledge is important. Then Ramanuja came and told that theoretical devotion is important. Then Madhva came and told that the practical service and sacrifice are important. This means that the sequence of spiritual steps is that first step is Jnana Yoga, knowledge. Second step is Bhakti Yoga, that is theoretical devotion. And the third step is Karma Yoga, practice in the path of spiritual line. Even the ego of the souls is reduced gradually through these three steps in sequence of time. As the ego of the soul is falling down, these three philosophies appeared more clearly, and the result is that the soul is in the final state of least ego and becomes the servant of God. Chitsamyam trimate bhinnam ऊह्यानूह्यादसत्सतः matam भ्रमात् ततो द्वैता bhagabhedah pratīre. Even though Madhva established total difference between God and soul, he agreed with just one similarity, which is that God and soul are awareness. The earlier two preachers also agreed that both God and soul are made of same awareness, at least qualitatively, with difference in potencies. This brought the misunderstanding that there is some commonality between God and soul. Actually, the three divine preachers meant the awareness of God as totally unimaginable and absolutely true due to absence of inert energy that is to be converted into awareness in nervous system and absence of materialized nervous system. Whereas the awareness of creation is imaginable and relatively true Due to this misunderstanding, there is an illusion that the ordinary soul may be God, or part of God, or servant of God, having common awareness. Like this, the three philosophies are wrongly taken as different. विलीनादुभयोर्वादौ नैक्यान्मध्वो दशात्रयम् न जीवेद्येयमेतेन त्रिबाह्यो लौकिको ध्रुवम्. In the case of Shankara and Ramanuja, the soul has total status of God and partial status of God respectively, because they have taken the soul of selected energetic or human being after merge with God Datta containing unimaginable God. This becomes true if the case considered is energetic or human incarnation and not ordinary energetic or human being. For the same reason, Madhva rejected this by not accepting the ordinary soul as God or part of God, because he did not accept the presence of unimaginable God in ordinary soul. In fact, all these three stages are given by God to the soul and can't be achieved by the soul through self-effort. अवतारे हि तस्येच्छा स्वांशेवा सेवकेऽथवा दशैकापि दया देया तस्यैव न स्वभावतः. A soul can become God provided that status is given by God due to his will and not by the will or effort of the soul. When the soul becomes God, it is called as incarnation or avatara, which means that God descended to become a human soul, and this does not mean that the soul ascended to become God. Hence, the status of monism told by Shankara is not completely false, but is granted by God due to his will only in the case of incarnation. Similarly, if God treats some devotee as his part, such status is also given by God by his will in the case of an ardent devotee. Similarly, if God treats some devotee as his beloved servant, such status is also given by God by his will. Hence, any one of these three types of divine status of the soul is not inherent, but is given by God by his will only. दशादेयावतारश्च भागश्च सेवकस्तथा देहांश उपमादृश्य प्रथमान्तौ तु सत्तया. People have misunderstood that the status of soul given by the three divine preachers is inherent for the soul, and this is the fundamental error. Only a specific devoted soul selected by God becomes God by becoming human incarnation like Rama, Krishna, etc. Similarly, only a specific soul selected by God due to its devotion becomes a part of God like Adishesha, Lakshmana, etc. Here, part of God does not mean the direct part of God, because God is indivisible, avibhaktam, Gita. The devoted soul is a part of the external world body of God along with other ordinary souls. The ordinary souls are not considered as parts of God by God since they do not have that much devotion. Even God Rama says that Lakshmana is his right hand in the sense of simile. This is seen in world also when father says that his two sons are his two eyes. Similarly, a specific soul appreciated by God can become the servant of God like Hanuman, Garuda, Nandi, etc. And not every ordinary soul. In the cases of first and third preachers, there is no simile because the human soul is really made God by God in first case, and the human soul is really made separate servant by God in third case. Of course, the third case can ascend to the second case, and God may treat the beloved servant to be his right hand. दोषो भक्तेन गुरुणा गुणाश्च जीवकर्मसु अद्वैतात् धैर्यमापत्सु सुगुणाश्च प्रवर्तने. For every philosophy of these three divine preachers, there are merits from the viewpoint of the preacher and there are defects from the viewpoint of the follower. In the philosophy of Shankara, the soul gets highest confidence in tensions because the soul is expected to treat itself as God directly. The soul also feels the divinity and excellent auspicious godly qualities present with the soul, so that the soul tries to behave as a good being, suppressing its inherent bad qualities. Saduddesho guru shishyo vakrekrutya na satpadha आस्तिकः पापकृज्जीवः शंकरात् samajayata. Shankara told that world is mithya, neither existent nor non-existent. This means that world is non-existent by itself and is existent because it borrowed the absolute existence of God. The soul, being a tiny part of the world, misunderstood that the world is unreal and thought itself only as absolutely real. Shankara allowed this misunderstanding because the soul may not do sins, since this world is felt unreal by the soul. Instead of this, the soul started doing sins, thinking that the sin is also unreal, and since it is God, no punishment can fall on it. Hence, if the divine preacher is expecting good results for his philosophy, opposite bad results are selected by the soul based on the misinterpretation of the same philosophy. The soul also became lazy without doing any work, thinking that it is the real God and the world is unreal. Parat bhakti manobhavaha बुद्धो ज्ञानाघ कर्मभित् अहंतांशान्न नष्टा च न पृथक् करणादपि. Ramanuja preached theoretical devotion towards God because devotion develops not only attachment to God but also fear towards God, since in the previous path the wrong knowledge that soul is God developed fearless sins in practice. Even though this merit is developed, the defect resulted is that by this theoretical devotion related to mind, devotees developed it without doing any practical service to God. The ego did not get completely eliminated because he preached that the soul is a part of God that can't be isolated. अद्वैताकाशमध्यस्था विशिष्टाद्वैतविश्रमः द्वैतभूमौ स्थितो जीवः सोऽहङ्कारव्ययक्रमः. Madhva isolated the soul completely from God to destroy the ego, neglecting the commonality of awareness in both God and soul. The soul has fallen from monism sky of Shankara to the middle Ramanuja intermediate space station and finally stood on the Madhva earth. The soul had highest ego in the sky, lesser ego in the middle space station, and least ego on falling on the earth. In this way, the ego is gradually reduced and brought to almost zero state. भक्तेर्निरूपणं सेवा हनुमान् पुरतस्थितः नरावतारयेतेन रामख्यातः क्रियापरा. Madhva gave importance to practical devotion, which is the proof of theoretical devotion. He kept Hanuman before him, indicating the importance of service to God. Since Hanuman did service to Rama, the contemporary human incarnation, the concept of human incarnation was also stressed by him. The practical devotion in the name of Prapatti was very much stressed by Madhva, whereas the theoretical devotion in the name of Bhakti was stressed by Ramanuja. Both are almost one and the same because the theory always leads to practice. बुद्धिरादौ परं चेतः सर्वस्वं कर्मयोगतः अतः फलं कर्मणो हि द्वयं दोहदकारणम्. Shankara, while preaching to atheists, stressed on intelligence and knowledge, and the goal was limited up to intelligence only because atheists are against the theoretical and practical devotion. Ramanuja stressed on mind and theoretical devotion since the atheists converted into theists and devotees are against the practical devotion. Madhva stressed on practical devotion, which is service and sacrifice of fruit of work, because the devotees are ripened in the theoretical devotion attaining maturity to do practical devotion to God by the time Madhva appeared. Therefore, the final fruit comes to the practical devotion only, that includes service and sacrifice. Both knowledge and devotion only help the practical devotion to achieve the final fruit. Pashyanto lihitam shishyaha na tatkalavrutta sthitim hite siddhanta vakratvat vivadakarahangataha. The followers of the three divine preachers concentrated only on the philosophies of the three divine preachers and did not see the surrounding circumstances of those three preachers in their times. The level of the receivers around a preacher in his time made the preacher to say the philosophy with some twists which were essential to lead the people to the correct spiritual path. Due to lack of observation of the background of receivers in the times of preachers, the followers of the three preachers quarreled with each other without understanding the background forces of the divine preachers. Shankarasya panabodhaha trayopi brahmano gataha dayaya triphalanyete nasiddhani swayam nunam. In order to bring atheists to the path of theists, Shankara told that every soul is God. He told that he is God Shiva and one day drank wine. The disciples also told the same, Shivoham, and drank wine. Next day Shankara drank molten lead, asking the disciples to drink the same. Then disciples fell on his feet and Shankara told that he alone is God Shiva, Shiva Kevaloham. Shankara was the human incarnation of God Shiva, and hence the philosophy of monism, that soul is God, applies to himself completely. Ramanuja was the incarnation of Adishesha, whom God treated as a part of himself. Hence the philosophy of Ramanuja, that soul is part of God, applies to himself. Madhva is the incarnation of Vayu, air, who is the servant of God, and hence his philosophy, that soul is the servant of God, applies to himself. In this way, the status of the soul in the three philosophies is fruit gifted by God to the selected devotees. An ordinary soul can't expect these fruits without the grace of God simply as inherent status of the soul. The three philosophies are fundamentally misunderstood at this basic root, and people thought that each philosophy is discussing about the inherent status of the soul with God. Nobody understood that the status of the soul discussed by each philosophy is not the inherent status of the soul, but is the status blessed by God to the soul based on the true deservingness of the soul. इति त्रैलोक्य गीतायां त्रिमत समन्वय योगो नाम षष्ठाध्यायः. Like this, in Trailokya Gita, the 6th chapter called Association of the Correlation among Three Divine Philosophies is completed.
उद्वेगरहिता संतोषरहिता शांति समुद्रा श्री दत्ता शांति समुद्रा श्री दत्ता शांति समुद्रा श्री दत्ता। ओम शांति शांति शांति।
Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that propagating divine spiritual knowledge pleases the Lord greatly. Jnana yajnena tenaham ishtasyamiti me matihi. Spiritual knowledge brings about permanent peace and harmony in the world. So join us in sharing this divine knowledge of Lord Datta and earn the highest grace of God. For more spiritual videos, visit our YouTube channel, Shri Datta Swami. For more discourses on true spiritual knowledge, visit the website www.universal-spirituality.org.